And I just remember how intense it was.
I'm going to tell you one thing. Nobody belonged in the ring with Andre the Giant.
What's it like to be 7 feet tall and weigh 500 pounds?
I don't make any plans, so just keep going.
Andre the Giant was more than a massive man. He was a mystery, a myth, and in many ways, a walking contradiction. Most people remember his face from wrestling posters or his role in The Princess Bride. They remember the size, the voice,
117 beers?
Yes.
the presence. But very few people know what his life was really like behind the fame. What if his size was never a gift at first, but a burden? What if the thing that made him famous nearly destroyed him? Today, we uncover 15 facts about Andre the Giant that reveal the man behind the legend. Andre's birth and real name. Andre the Giant entered the world on May 19, 1946, far from bright lights or cheering crowds, in a quiet rural part of France. There was nothing glamorous about the place where his story began. It was farmland, open fields, and long days shaped by hard work and routine. His parents were not wealthy or famous. They were practical people, raising a family the only way they knew how, with discipline and simple expectations. At birth, he was given the name André René Roussimoff, a name that carried no hint of the legend it would later become. At that moment, he was not a future icon. He was simply a newborn boy in a farming village, expected to grow up, work the land, and live a life much like those before him. Growing up in the countryside meant Andre's early world was small. There were no big ambitions placed on his shoulders and no talk of fame or travel. His future seemed mapped out before he could even understand it. Farm life was demanding, but it was familiar and grounding. The idea of becoming known across the world was so distant it may as well have been impossible. No one around him imagined stadiums, television cameras, or global attention, least of all, Andre himself. He was raised to believe that a good life meant honest work, loyalty to family, and staying close to home. But even at birth, there was already something different about him. A large but healthy baby. Andre arrived at birth weighing 11 pounds, which made him 50% larger than standard newborns. His birth weight of more than 11 pounds made him bigger than typical newborns who weigh less than 8 pounds, which caused both doctors and family members to notice him immediately. The delivery room showed no signs of danger because his delivery room measurements and weight matched. The medical staff conducted thorough examinations, which confirmed that his first medical checkup showed no signs of sickness. He demonstrated healthy breathing patterns and maintained a steady heartbeat, while all aspects of his growth showed normal development in essential areas of human development. He did not show any signs of sickness because the medical staff believed he was a regular large infant. The medical staff found him to be a standard large infant who displayed no signs of health problems. The family found comfort from the initial evaluations, which showed their child was developing normally. The small agricultural community that required its residents to adopt practical solutions viewed him as dangerous because of his large physical stature. The agricultural community regarded strength as an essential quality that helped farmers complete their daily physical tasks. The parents of Andre thought that his large size represented a hereditary family characteristic that had existed in their family for generations. The situation needed no urgent explanation because people remained unworried about what happened. The family used the expression big-boned to explain their situation, which helped them understand their unusual medical condition. The family maintained their belief system about his growth, which remained unchanged throughout his entire life. People showed interest in Andrei's physical size throughout his entire life because they found it to be an interesting fact about him. He consumed enough food to maintain his energy, and he slept deeply while performing his farm work duties. The body showed no signs of secret medical conditions that caused his health problems. The adults around him believed their observations matched reality because they saw a healthy and competent child. The adults believed that his unexplained growth resulted from an invisible factor. The explanation for his large size actually possessed several origins: family height and grandfather's influence. As Andrei continued to grow, his family searched for simple explanations that would make sense of his unusual size. His parents, Boris and Marionette, were both of average height and build. They lived ordinary lives and blended easily into the rural community around them. Nothing about their appearance suggested they would raise a child who would tower over nearly everyone he met. Yet, families often looked to their past for answers, and in Andrei's case, there was one figure who seemed to explain everything without raising fear or doubt. That figure was Andrei's grandfather. He was Bulgarian and remembered within the family as an exceptionally tall man, standing over 7 feet in height. Stories about him had been passed down casually, almost proudly, as proof that great size simply ran in the bloodline. Compared to his grandfather, Andrei did not seem so unusual. In fact, his family viewed his growth as a delayed echo of that towering ancestor. This belief allowed them to remain calm as Andrei grew faster and taller than other children his age. Because of this family history, no one questioned his development too deeply. Doctors were not pushed for answers, and no urgent tests were requested. The idea that Andrei's height could be inherited felt reasonable and comforting. His siblings, all of average size, did not trigger concern either. Families often accept that one child may simply turn out different from the rest. In their minds, Andrei had just inherited a rare but natural trait. This assumption followed Andrei into his teenage years, shaping how he understood himself. He believed his size was simply fate, written into his family story long before he was born. The truth, however, was far more complex, and the explanation his family relied on would one day be proven incomplete. Childhood nickname, Deei. Before he became known as Andrei the Giant, he was called Deei by his family. He received the nickname Deei during his early childhood on a farm where his size had little value, while his farming work and family ties were the most important things. His rural existence created daily patterns that required him to perform basic tasks through physical activities. He spent his time outside while he tended to animals and cultivated crops. He experienced a feeling of security and stability because he was among open fields and people he knew. The farm provided him with everything he needed to live, yet he found peace in its constant nature. His family used the name Deei to identify him during his childhood years. The name carried a friendly tone, which made it common, but lost its ability to create dramatic moments. To them, he was not a future attraction or something to be stared at. The boy lived with his parents and siblings in a close family unit, which included his mother and father. The nickname used to call him Deei, which showed his increasing weight, made people remember that he was still a young boy. The body displayed its first unusual features while he created an ordinary atmosphere. Andrei spent this period of his life without any desire to leave his home or to attract public notice. The concept of fame existed outside his understanding. He thought that traveling to distant places would create more problems than benefits. He wanted to create a life that would be like his existing life, which would keep him at home with his family. He found no interest in urban centers, which brought crowds and public visibility. He had small dreams that connected directly to his existing way of living. The name Deei created a period in Andrei's life that brought him both humility and simple life values that remained with him after the name lost its power. Dropping out of school. As Andrei grew older, the path he imagined for himself became clear in his mind, even if it worried the people around him. He left school in the 8th grade, a decision that felt natural to him at the time. Academic life seemed distant from the world he knew and understood. The classroom felt small, restrictive, and disconnected from the reality of farm work. To Andrei, education did not appear necessary for the life he planned to live. He believed his strength and work ethic would be enough to carry him forward. His plan was simple. He intended to become a farmer like his father. Farming was honest work, familiar work, and work that made sense to him. It allowed him to stay close to his family and remain in the rural environment he loved. There was dignity in the routine and purpose in physical labor. Andrei did not see his decision as giving up on a future. He saw it as choosing one that was already proven and respected. From his perspective, leaving school was not a failure but a practical step toward adulthood. His family, however, saw things differently. They feared he was closing doors before he even knew what lay behind them. They understood that education offered choices, protection, and opportunity beyond the farm. Watching Andrei walk away from school made them uneasy, especially as his size already set him apart from others. They worried that without education, his options would shrink even further. Their concern was not about ambition, but about security and independence. This tension created a quiet divide between Andrei's confidence and his family's fears. Neither side knew that his life was about to change in ways none of them could predict. Samuel Beckett's help. The unexpected moment brought support to Andrei, who faced educational decline. The future Nobel laureate, Samuel Beckett, established a local connection through which he knew Andrei's father. Most people recognized Beckett as a major literary and intellectual figure. To Andrei's family, he was just someone who helped them during essential times. Beckett believed that education should provide people with open opportunities that extend beyond their present educational status and degrees. Beckett dedicated himself to driving Andrei and his siblings to school in his flatbed truck. The image appeared striking, yet people at that time considered it to be ordinary. The act contained no value that people should consider important. The process developed into a calming procedure that showed people that he dedicated himself to their well-being through his regular actions. The rides that they took every day turned into more than just ways to travel. The rides confirmed that other people outside the family considered Andrei's mental abilities to be as valuable as his physical strengths. Beckett used basic dialogues, which built up his support system to assist Andrei in discovering a different perspective on education. He did not pressure him to abandon his love for farm life or push him toward grand ambitions. He explained to me that educational systems develop a person's character development throughout their entire existence. He proposed that knowledge functions as an educational resource that people can use to develop their skills. The concept started to become established in Andrei's thoughts. Beckett's influence created a permanent impact on his work. Andrei learned that learning serves as a path to educational achievement, which requires dedicated effort to succeed. Even if he returned to the fields, his mind would remain sharp and capable. The lesson stayed with him because it created an enduring pattern that guided his approach to obstacles during his entire life. Talent in mathematics. Despite the challenges Andrei faced in school, there was one area where he consistently stood out. Mathematics came naturally to him. Numbers made sense in a way that many other subjects did not. While reading and writing could feel distant and abstract, math offered clear rules and logical outcomes. Andrei approached problems methodically, breaking them down step by step until the solution revealed itself. Teachers noticed that when it came to calculations and patterns, he worked with focus and confidence. His strength in math reflected a deeper problem-solving ability that often went unnoticed. Andre had a practical mind shaped by farm life, where planning, measurement, and efficiency mattered every day. This way of thinking translated easily into mathematics. He could visualize solutions and adapt when obstacles appeared. Yet, because of his size and quiet nature, people rarely expected intellectual sharpness from him. Assumptions were made before he ever had the chance to prove himself. Andre did not seek attention for his abilities. He was reserved and comfortable, staying in the background. This meant his intelligence was frequently overshadowed by his physical presence. In classrooms and social settings, people focused on how big he was rather than how capable he could be. Over time, this reinforced the idea that his value lay in strength rather than thought. Still, those who paid attention could see that he understood more than he said. This quiet intelligence became one of his greatest tools later in life, helping him navigate complex situations and adapt to new environments. But daily life still fought against him. Everyday challenges of gigantism. The physical development of Andre made all his daily activities more difficult than expected. His hand size created difficulties with everyday movements, which most people consider basic. He found it nearly impossible to make phone calls because his hand size did not fit the design of the phone he used. He needed to use objects such as pencils to operate the buttons because his fingers lacked the ability to do so. He experienced small experiences that continued throughout the day until they brought him back to the moment he entered a world designed without consideration for his needs. Music served as another source of silent disappointment for him. Andre developed an interest in musical instruments because he wanted to experience playing, but his body size made that experience impossible. The weight of guitars made him feel they would break when he tried to play them, while piano keys proved too slim for his fingers to move freely. His attempts to reach exactness always ended with failure. The situation arose because he faced a physical obstacle that he could not breach through his efforts. The situation required him to practice multiple methods until he found the one that would result in the most effective outcome. The majority of furniture items failed to match his body dimensions. He encountered problems with chairs that either broke or did not provide proper support. The beds proved insufficient in height and width, which required him to adopt uncomfortable sleeping postures. Farm equipment and home-use tools needed to establish their regular size, which made him need to create new solutions while applying excessive strength. His body and mind experienced fatigue from the ongoing need to correct everything about himself. He experienced two types of discomfort, which made it hard for him to feel comfortable and accepted. The experience of living with gigantism extended beyond the need to achieve tallness. The condition made him face a world that showed constant opposition to his existence, and it taught him essential life skills that remained with him until he became famous. Rejected by the French army. Like many young men of his time, Andre felt a strong pull toward military service. He saw it as a chance to prove himself, to find structure, and to serve something larger than his own life. With his size and strength, he believed he could be an asset. Hand-to-hand combat, physical endurance, and presence alone seemed like areas where he could excel. For Andre, joining the army represented purpose, discipline, and belonging, all things he quietly longed for. The reality, however, was painfully different. When Andre attempted to enlist, practical limitations immediately stood in the way. The army simply was not equipped to handle someone of his size. There were no uniforms large enough to fit his massive frame. Beds in the barracks were far too small to support his height and weight. Even basic equipment and living quarters posed problems that could not be easily solved. These were not issues of ability or willingness, but of logistics. The rejection cut deeply. Andre was not turned away because he lacked strength or discipline, but because his body did not fit into a system designed for average men. For someone who already felt out of place in daily life, this was another reminder that his size could be a barrier rather than an advantage. The disappointment lingered, leaving him questioning where he truly belonged. This moment marked another dream taken from him, not by choice, but by circumstance. It forced Andre to confront a harsh truth. No matter how strong he was, there were paths he simply could not walk. The rejection weighed heavily on him, pushing him to search for a future where his size would finally be accepted instead of rejected. Early success in sports. The sport of soccer brought Andre his first experience, which showed him his true athletic potential. His physical dimensions became an advantageous tool for him during his time on the field. He demonstrated superior performance in rugby through his ability to control his body while using his strength, balance, and endurance. His opponents found it impossible to push him back while he maintained his balance through tackles that would normally stop other players. His large body size enabled him to move with exceptional control while maintaining his body balance at high speeds. His soccer performance showed another aspect of his athletic skills. People who saw him assumed that his weight would make him move slowly and clumsily, yet Andre proved them wrong through his graceful movements. He used his understanding of timing and positioning, together with his physical advantages, to control critical moments during the match. Coaches were often caught off guard by how naturally he adapted. They expected him to perform with high physical strength, but he showed them his abilities through disciplined behavior and instinctive actions. His mere existence changed how the game progressed because opposing teams needed to change their game plans to deal with his presence. Andre reached his first experience of complete physical freedom from his body limitations without any constraints. His physical body size created a sense of mission for him. Teammates relied on him. Coaches assigned him their trust. His success on the field increased his self-esteem while showing him that he could achieve more than just his current life as a farmer or his current status as an outcast. Sports provided him an uncommon opportunity for acceptance, which came without the need to make any sacrifices. He refused to make himself smaller to fit into systems that did not suit him. The game changed to fit his playing style. Discovering wrestling. The idea of wrestling entered Andre's life almost by accident. A friend noticed his size, strength, and growing success in sports and suggested that he try wrestling as a temporary replacement for an injured team member. Until that moment, Andre had never seriously considered the sport. Wrestling was not part of his plans or his dreams. Still, he was curious and open to new experiences. He agreed to give it a try, unaware that this single suggestion would redirect the course of his entire life. To pursue wrestling seriously, Andre had to leave the comfort of rural life and move to Paris. The city was overwhelming at first, filled with noise, crowds, and unfamiliar routines. Training was intense and demanding, pushing his body in new ways. Wrestling required more than strength. It demanded timing, balance, endurance, and performance. Andre absorbed it all quickly, showing a natural understanding of how to use his size without wasting energy. Trainers saw potential almost immediately. Life in Paris was far from easy. To support himself, Andre worked as a mover during the day, hauling heavy furniture and appliances through narrow staircases and crowded buildings. The work was exhausting, but it paid the bills. At night, he trained relentlessly, learning technique, discipline, and ring awareness. Sleep was limited, and his body was under constant strain, yet he rarely complained. He believed the effort was worth it. This period tested Andre's resilience more than any other. It forced him to balance survival with ambition, pain with progress. Slowly, the pieces began to fall into place. Wrestling was no longer just an experiment. It was becoming a path forward, one that finally seemed built for someone like him. Launch of a professional career. Andre began his career as a professional wrestler after meeting Frank Valois, who worked as a wrestling promoter. Valois immediately recognized what others could not ignore once they saw Andre in action. His stature stood above others, but his exceptional presence enabled him to control situations. Valois recognized that Andre belonged to both the athletic world and the entertainment sector, which attracted worldwide audiences. He took Andre under his wing and began shaping the early stages of his professional career with careful planning and bold ambition. Andre experienced rapid growth in his life after Valois became his mentor. The wrestling matches scheduled for him extended beyond French territory, which required him to compete in foreign venues. He competed in wrestling matches throughout England, Germany, Japan, Australia, and other locations. Each new country introduced unique audience members who followed different wrestling traditions and had distinct expectations. The same response followed him everywhere he traveled. People stared in disbelief, drawn in by his size and strength. Word spread rapidly through the audience. The audience members spread information, while promoters contacted them, which resulted in increased demand. This period marked Andre's first real taste of global fame. He advanced from being an aimless young man to an internationally recognized individual who possessed multiple national identities. Airports, hotels, and arenas became his everyday environment. The travel proved to be both tiring and painful, yet it established a vital truth about his life. His size, which people had previously rejected him for, now provided him access to international opportunities. Fame appeared in a gradual manner instead of emerging suddenly. Yet Andre noticed the change. He had become a public figure who received recognition from fans. Fans recognized him, and promoters competed to book him. For the first time, his life felt expansive rather than limited. The path ahead was demanding, but it was clear that his journey had moved beyond survival. The world started to notice him because he had developed into a professional attraction who could draw. Wrestling as Jean Fere. In the early stage of his career, Andre competed under the name Jean Fere, a persona that marked his first true identity in professional wrestling. As Jean Fere, he was presented as a powerful and imposing figure designed to overwhelm opponents through sheer strength. The character fit naturally, and audiences responded immediately. Fans were drawn to his presence, his calm dominance, and the sense that they were watching something entirely new. This persona became the foundation on which his later fame would be built. Japan, in particular, embraced Jean Fere with enthusiasm. Wrestling crowds there were captivated by his size and discipline, and his popularity grew at a remarkable pace. Arenas filled with fans, eager to see the giant foreign wrestler perform. He was treated as a major attraction, and his matches were promoted as special events. For Andre, the admiration was overwhelming. He had never experienced such intense attention before, and it confirmed that wrestling could give him a place where he truly belonged. Despite the success in the ring, daily life in Japan was difficult. The country was not built for someone of his size, and simple routines became constant challenges. Hotel rooms were too small, beds were uncomfortable, bathrooms were nearly unusable. Even public transportation was a struggle. Outside the arena, his fame did not protect him from physical discomfort or isolation. Language barriers added another layer of difficulty, making everyday interactions more exhausting. These experiences revealed a painful contrast. On stage, Jean Fere was celebrated and admired. Offstage, André felt confined and limited by the world around him. The success was real, but so were the sacrifices, reminding him that no matter where he traveled, his size would always shape his reality. Diagnosis of acromegaly. While wrestling in Japan in 1970, André finally received the explanation he had never known to ask for. Doctors informed him that his extraordinary growth was not simply inherited, nor was it random. He was diagnosed with acromegaly, a condition caused by a tumor in the brain that triggers the body to produce excessive growth hormones. The news reframed his entire life in a single moment. What he had believed was fate or family history was actually a medical condition shaping every part of his body. The diagnosis carried heavy weight. Doctors explained that the condition would continue to affect him, and that it came with serious risks. Among the most alarming was the warning that he might not live past the age of 40. For a man still building his career and discovering his place in the world, the news was devastating. It introduced a sense of urgency and uncertainty that he had never faced before. His size was no longer just unusual. It was dangerous. André absorbed the information quietly. Those close to him later recalled that he did not outwardly panic or withdraw. Instead, he reflected. The diagnosis explained the pain, the exhaustion, and the constant physical strain he felt. It also forced him to confront his own limits. Time, something he had never thought much about, suddenly became precious. The diagnosis did not slow him down. Instead of stopping, he transformed, becoming André the Giant and WWF fame. André's career reached a defining moment when he caught the attention of Vince McMahon, the powerful figure behind the World Wrestling Federation. McMahon understood spectacle better than anyone, and he saw in André something truly rare. The decision was made to rebrand him completely. The goal was not subtlety or realism, but myth. André was no longer just a skilled wrestler. He was transformed into a living legend. From that point forward, he would be known as André the Giant. The new identity changed everything. His presence became larger than life, carefully presented as unstoppable and dominant. Audiences were drawn to the idea of a man who seemed impossible to defeat. Week after week, André faced challengers who fell one by one. This image carried him through an undefeated run that lasted 15 years, a streak that became central to his mystique. Fans tuned in not just to watch wrestling, but to witness history in motion. As his fame grew, André became one of the most recognizable figures in entertainment. He appeared on television, on posters, and in packed arenas across the country. Yet the peak of his wrestling legacy arrived in the ring with Hulk Hogan. Their match became one of the most talked-about events in wrestling history. The clash of two giants drew massive attention and emotional investment from fans around the world. André the Giant lived larger than life, but his struggles were just as big as his fame. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most fascinating figures in sports history, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts below. And don't forget to watch the next video on screen now for more untold stories like this.